Hey everybody, today I'd like to show you what's involved in creating a fully customized DAZ character. I'll be going through the entire process beginning to end. I'll go over how you create the morphs and the shaping as well as the textures and skin, and this will all be done on the Genesis 8 female base character. So for any of you who don't already know this, in the DAZ system, in DAZ Studio, there's what is known as the base character. And for quite a while now, the base character was called the Genesis. There was the Genesis 2 and Genesis 3 and so on. And they skipped from Genesis 3 to Genesis 8, which is the most current base character and the one that we'll be working with. So once you have your Genesis 8 loaded, there's a couple of things you have to do before you can get started. This step's really important because if you forget to do it, it's going to create some problems for you later. Number one is delete her eyelashes. On the Genesis 8 platform, the eyelashes are a separate object, which would create problems when trying to generate the morph. So just go ahead and click on Genesis 8, go down to eyelashes, and let's just delete those for now. We also need to set our mesh resolution to base. So under the parameters tab, go down to mesh resolution, and under resolution level, hit the drop down and select base. Both of these steps are necessary if we want our morph to work properly. So now we're ready to start creating our character. And creating a character really consists of two things: creating the shape and creating the textures or the skin. We're going to start work on our character by creating her shape. And we're going to do this as two separate morphs. We're going to do one for the head and one for her body. The reason why we separate this into head and body is this will give our users the ability to apply those morphs separately using two independent slider bars for that character. So we're going to use two separate techniques for creating the shape of our character. We're going to do some of it from within DAZ Studio, and then we're going to do some of it from an external modeling software. In our case, we'll be using Blender. In DAZ Studio, they use a system of slider bars that gives you pretty good control over the shape of your character. As you can see, for this character, I have quite a few slider bars just for her face. So when you first open DAZ Studio and load up Genesis 8, you may not see all these slider bars. These sliders are morphs that are created by other artists and are sold as assets on the DAZ 3D website. This package I pulled up gives you over 200 head and face morphs for Genesis 8 female. There are other packages that give you head and face morphs as well as body morphs, and they're a great investment if you're going to be doing your own custom characters. Let's start shaping our character's head. I've sped this up for you guys, but as you can see, I'm going through the various slider bars, adjusting different aspects of her face and head in order to get the look I'm going for. You can get excellent results using the DAZ Studio slider bar system, but you can also export this model and bring her into your favorite modeling software to take your editing to the next level. In order to export her as an OBJ file, come over to the File menu, click Export, make sure OBJ is selected, and give the file a name. For the purposes of this demo, we're going to be calling her New Char. So since this is a head morph, we're going to call it New Char Head. It's also important, since we're working with Blender, that the poser preset is selected. Hit Accept, and now your file is ready for Blender. Let's import our character into Blender now. Go to File, Import, Wavefront OBJ, select our file, and it's very important that Split by Object and Group are both unchecked. This way we'll keep our object as a single object. One of the things about DAZ Studio is when you export a morph, you have to keep the vertex order and the vertex indices the same as they were on the base character. If this changes, then when you import your morph, it will not work properly against your character. That means deleting faces, deleting vertices, using mirror modifiers, or even adding geometry will not work. We can only reshape our model if we want to use it as a morph back in DAZ Studio. So let's go ahead and start doing some of our own modeling in Blender here. Remember that this is a head morph we're working on, so we don't want to touch the body at all. If you accidentally change your geometry in the body, it'll create some issues when you bring her back into DAZ Studio. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my Blender sculpting tool, and I'm going to show you how we can further change the shape of her face. This is the part where you can get really creative and create a character that's truly unique. But remember, we're just changing her shape and not adding geometry or deleting geometry. So once you finish your modeling, let's export her back out as an OBJ file. When we do this, we can either overwrite the old file or save her under a new file if you want to have different versions. Export, and then let's go back to Des. Now that we finished our head morph, let's start working on our body morph. Before we can do that, we have to restore our figure. Make sure Genesis 8 is selected, go to Edit, Figure, Restore, Restore Figure. And this will return our Genesis 8 back to her original shape. But it also sets the mesh resolution back to high. Let's make sure we put that back to base. That's really important. So now let's follow the same steps that we did when modeling the head for the body. As you can see here, I sped this up again. I'm using the slider bars to give her a custom body shape. And obviously you can also bring this into Blender or your modeling software of choice to further edit the shape of her body. Once we're done with the shaping, we're going to go ahead and export this out as an OBJ. So go to File, Export, make sure OBJ is selected, and let's call this New Char Body. Once we've done that, again, it's very important that we have the poser preset selected and hit Accept. Now both our head and body morphs are saved out as OBJ files and ready to be used in our new character. The next thing you want to do is load a new scene. This is where we're going to save our custom character. We also need to load a new Genesis 8 base female so we can apply our morphs to her. Now let's load the morph files into our character. First, make sure that Genesis 8 is selected, and then you want to click on this icon right here. This is the Morph Loader Pro. Once this window opens up, go to Choose More Files, and let's select the two files that we created earlier. Hit Open and Accept. If everything went well, you'll see created morph successfully for both of our items. Click OK. Now that our morphs are loaded into our character, you should see the morph sub-item in the Parameters tab under Genesis 8 Female. You can drop this down and get to the Morph Loader sub-item, and here's your head and body morph. If I dial this up to 100, you'll see it applies the shape to my character. We want to make some changes to these two morphs, so go over here to this gear, click Parameter Settings to open the Parameter Settings window. There are a few basic settings in here I want to go over right now. Name and label are used to label your morphs so people can recognize what they're for. We'll call them New Character Head. You can also assign a color to your morph. This is cool to give it a little bit of uniqueness. Also, this value here, min value and max value, we want to set the min value to 0 and leave the max value at 100, so that way our slider bar only goes up to 100 and 0 and doesn't go down to negative numbers. Let's hit Accept, and let's do the same for our body morph. We're going to call this New Character Body, and then we're going to go ahead and select a cool color and set the min down to 0. One more thing we have to do to make sure our morph works properly is we have to adjust the skeleton to the morph shape. If you don't adjust the skeleton to the morph shape, when you change the shape of your figure using a morph, she might not move properly because the joints in her body are not in the proper position. I'll show you how to do that now. To do this, we have to go into edit mode for our morphs. Right click on the morph and click edit mode. Now we want to do this to one morph at a time, starting with the body. So let's set the head to 0 so it's not being applied to our character. And then we want to go up here to our joint editing tool, right click on our character, go to edit, adjust rigging to shape, and hit accept. And you're going to notice that the joints are going to pop into place. Then go to your body morph and right click, and you want to go down here to ERC freeze and hit accept. And what that does is that ties in the new position of your joints to the current setting of the morph. So if we now take this morph and dial back and forth, you'll see the joints will move along with it. Let's do the same thing for the head. Set the body to 0, set the head to 100, right click, edit, adjust rigging to shape, hit accept. You're going to see a little bit of movement in the joints. You're going to right click on the morph, ERC freeze, and accept. So now your morphs will adjust your character's shape as well as her joints, so that way she moves properly. The final thing you want to do is create a third parameter that controls both of these, so you can dial in your character's shape with a single dial instead of having to do the head and body separately. To do that, let's make sure both of our morphs are dialed up to 100. Right click over here while in edit mode and click create new property. We want to give it a good name. Let's call it new character. Let's give it the color that we were using so that way it ties it all together. And once again, let's set the min value to 0 and hit create. So if you see here, we have this parameter that says new character. And if I dial it up and down, it doesn't do anything. Well, once again, we want to right click on it and go to ERC freeze and make sure our head and body morphs are selected, and also make sure that they're both set to 100 here. Hit accept. Now when we dial this back and forth, all three dials go together, and it gives us a convenient way to dial our character in with one dial. The final thing we want to do with our morphs is we want to categorize them. Click on the dial to go to parameter settings, and you'll see under path it says morph loader. What we actually want to do is put this in an appropriate place for the type of morph that it is. This one's a head morph, so drop this down, go to actor, go to head, go to people, and real world. Actor and head tell it that it's a head morph. I like to use people and real world for characters that are more realistic. Hit accept. And you'll see it disappears because it goes into its category. Let's do the same thing for the body morph. We're going to go here, actor, full body, people, real world. Accept. And then for the character one, we're going to go ahead and categorize that as well. We're going to go to actor, people, real world. Now that we have our morphs completed, let's go on to the skin. Skin for the Genesis character is under the Surfaces tab, and in there you'll see that there's a Surfaces sub-item, and under there you'll see sub-items for each of the character's surfaces and textures. These materials have a lot of different settings, which give it its realistic look. You'll also see that each one of these has a setting that says base color with an image map associated with it. If we browse that folder, you'll see all the image maps that belong to the DAZ base female character. What I usually do is I'll copy these out and paste them into the folder I'm working with as a starting point for my custom skin textures. Let's talk for a second about where your texture maps have to be saved. DAZ has a very specific way of doing this, and the folder structure has to be set up properly. This is where this character's texture maps would be saved. The first part of that is your DAZ 3D library, and is set up in DAZ Studio under Settings. Runtime and Textures is where all texture maps get saved. Eon is the artist name, that's me, and New Character is the product. So the format is my DAZ 3D library, runtime, textures, artists, product name. So here's my texture folder for New Character, and in it I put some custom textures that are a good example of what custom textures might look like for your new character. There are a couple of ways that you can create a custom skin texture, one of which is using 3D Paint software to create your texture completely from scratch. Another way you can do this is to take the base texture from the Genesis 8 female character and bring it into Photoshop, where you can edit it to come up with your own custom skin texture. This is the way I've done it in the past, and I've gotten really good results. So here's our new character with her skin textures and shaping applied, and as you can see, she looks like a completely new and custom character. Now let's talk about what's involved in turning our custom character into a product you can offer for sale to others. The first thing we're going to need to do is create some icons for our character. Before we do that, we probably want to give her some hair and some clothing and put her in a pose that shows her off well. Once we've done that, let's do a rendering and see how she looks. Once the rendering is complete, let's save the image. In DAZ Studio, you can save the image as either a JPEG or PNG, The nice thing about the PNG format is that Studio saves it with a transparent background, and that can be useful when you're creating the icon later. We need to create 3 icons for our morphs, one for the head morph, one for the body morph, and one for our character control. They need to be a certain size, 147 by 185, and they need to be named a certain way. We name them with the name of the morph, and then underscore, and then CTRL for the control, FHM, which stands for full head morph, or FBM, which stands for full body morph. Morph icons have to be on a transparent background, and the image part has to be cropped how you see it here. This is so that they format properly when they're placed on the slider bar in the user interface. So now let's save out our morph assets. Go to File, Save As, Support Asset, Morph Asset. Under vendor name, make sure it has your artist name if it doesn't already. And under product name, enter the product name. For us, again, it's new character. Drop down Genesis 8 female. Go to Actor, People, Real World, and scroll down to find your new character morph. Then we're going to go up to Head, People, Real World, and again scroll down to find our new character head morph. Then let's go up to Full Body, People, Real World, and find our full body morph. Hit Accept, and now your morph assets are saved. Now that you saved your morph assets, let's copy our new icons to the same location. These should be in my-3D library under Data-3D, Genesis 8, Female, Morphs, and then artist name, or in this case Eon, and then product name, or in this case new character. Now let's assign our icons to our morphs. In the Parameters tab, locate your morphs, go to the Parameters Settings, and in Card, you want to go to Browse, locate your icons, select the appropriate one, and hit Accept. Let's do the same for our head morph. Parameter Settings, Card, locate the appropriate icon, and then hit Accept. And then we want to do the same thing for our character control. Again, it's under Card, Browse, locate the appropriate icon, and we also want to change the type from None to Modifier Shape. Hit Accept, and now let's take a look at what this looks like in the user interface. If this was done right, you'll see the icons just as you see them here assigned to your morphs. So let's see where we save out our character assets. These also have a particular place where they have to go. They go in My.3D library under People, Genesis 8 Female, Characters, and then I like to create a folder with my artist name, in this case Eon, and then you create a folder with the product name, New Character. Sometimes you may also want to have additional folders under your product folder for materials, and you might even want to split that into iRay and 3ds. The easiest way to create these subfolders is from within a Content Library tab. Go to My.3D library, go to People, go to Genesis 8 Female, then go to Characters, right-click on Characters and select Create a Subfolder, and you want to give this subfolder the same name as your artist name. Then right-click on this artist subfolder and create your product subfolder, naming it the same as your character. Now we're ready to save out all the rest of our character assets. Let's start by saving our character. Go to your File menu, hit Save As, go to Character Preset, let's give this the same name as our character and hit Save, and let's make sure shape settings and material settings are both checked and hit Accept. Next, we're going to want to save her skin as a material preset. Go to File, Save As, Material Preset. Let's call this New Character Skin. Hit Save. And you want to make sure everything is checked here so we save all of her skin surfaces. Hit Accept. Next, let's save presets that will apply and remove our morphs. To do so, go to your File menu, go to Save As, Shaping Preset, and let's call this first one New Character Head Apply. Click Save, drop down Genesis 8 Female, right click, uncheck all, drop down Actor, Head, People, Real World, and let's find our morph and select it and hit Accept. Now let's do one for the body. Save As, Shaping Preset, We're going to call this new character body apply. Hit save. Right click, uncheck all. Go to actor, full body, people, real world, and find our body morph. Hit accept. Now let's save out our presets to remove our morphs. Make sure we dial our morphs down to 0, and then go to File, Save As, Shaping Preset. We're going to call this first one New Character Head Remove. Hit Save, drop down Genesis 8, right click, uncheck all, then go to Actor, Head, People, Real World, and find our morph again and select it, and then we want to hit Accept. Now let's do the body morph. Save as, shaping preset, save this as new character, body remove, save, drop down Genesis 8, uncheck all, go to actor, full body, people, real world, find our morph, and hit accept. The next thing I want to go over is applying custom icons to your newly created assets. As you can see, Dash Studio automatically creates icons for you, but you can improve these greatly by saving out your own renders and saving them as icons. Icons in Dash Studio are saved out as PNG files, and the files have the same name as the asset that they're attached to. They have to be 91 by 91 pixels, and you can include a second icon that's 256 by 256 pixels for the tooltip. This one will have a .tip before the extension to indicate its use for the tooltip. Click refresh to apply these icons, and as you can see, this greatly improves the look of your user interface. So now your character is ready to be offered to others. Let's go over what you have to include in your package. There are 3 folders that are in the My-3D library that you have to include. One of them is People, Genesis 8 Female, Characters, your Artist folder, and then the Product folder. You want to include everything in this folder. The other folder you have to include is Data, Dash3D, Genesis 8, Female, Morphs, Artist folder, and Product folder. This is where all your morph files are located. The final folder is My-3D Library, Runtime, Textures, Artist folder, Product folder. This is where all your textures are located. As long as these 3 folders are all included in your package, your customer will get everything that they need. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you found it useful, and please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and keep an eye out for upcoming videos.